It's going to make your life so much easier and it's going to make their life so much easier. And everything's just going to be more pleasant for everyone.
Today's guest is Danielle Lindner. She is a revered educator, an acclaimed children's author, parenting expert, and creator. She has a new book, is Parents' Pocket Guide to Surviving the Preschool Years. If you want some solid information about how to help your preschooler, you will want to listen in to today's episode. Danielle shares some wonderful tips and makes things so very clear for parents.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Earrings Off. We want to invite you to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. You can find us on Facebook at Earrings Off Podcast and on Instagram at The Earrings Off Podcast.
Welcome to Earrings Off. I'm Lou.
And I'm Teresa.
Hello, Danielle, and thanks for joining us today. I really can't wait for our listeners to hear your unique perspective on raising preschool age children.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we're going to get started right away with the questions. First thing, I am curious to know, what inspired you to write a book specifically for parents with preschool age children? Were there any
Oh,
personal experiences or challenges that influenced your
yes,
decision?
absolutely. So
Okay.
15 years ago, I started a preschool. Um,
Okay.
I had young kids. My youngest was 4.5, so she really didn't get the benefit of much of my new school because she ended up going to kindergarten within 6 months of my opening. But I just felt like the schools were missing something. They were missing the character education piece. They were missing the language, foreign language piece. They were missing STEM and just not really capitalizing enough on the child's spongy brain at that age. And so, coming out of elementary education, I said to my husband, what do you think if I try to start a school that I think a school should be? And he said, yeah, go ahead. So, and that's where it started. And, after 15 years, I've met with and coached so many parents, and the same common themes keep coming up over and over and over again. Like bedtime battles and eating troubles and potty training. And I just thought, it would be great if I could just kind of put it all in a pocket guide and help more people than can walk into my office at a time. And, also for parents, like we're all kind of in the same boat. And I think that with the Instagram world and every person putting up, their visit to Disney that looks amazing and perfect, moms especially start to feel like they're terrible moms because the Disney trips they're seeing are amazing, and they had, 3 kids with dirty diapers and screaming and crying, and the news is so did they. They just didn't post it.
Yeah,
Mm, yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I
mm,
believe that.
yeah. So, talk to us about the term trickle down education. You coined the term. What does that mean?
So I really believe that kids learn from the adults they're around. And they want to impress their parents, they want to impress their teachers, they want to impress people that mean something to them, their mentors. And if they see them acting a certain way, they're going to emulate that.
Mhm.
So, I always say if a parent is in a restaurant and they are rude to their server, chances are the child's going to think that's acceptable behavior, and then they're going to be rude as well.
Mhm.
If a parent is constantly, or if two parents are constantly shouting and fighting and they don't really have good conflict resolution at home, that's probably going to rear its head in the classroom. They're going to think that that's conflict resolution, screaming at my friend or grabbing a toy or punching or hitting. So I feel that what happens at the top trickles down. And we as the caregivers have to remind ourselves that kids are smart and they're actually smarter than when we were kids. They're even
Hmm.
more aware of
Oh,
what's
yeah.
going on around them. I
Yeah.
don't know that that's a great thing, but they
Hmm.
are.
Yeah.
Um, and so, if you're going to have a disagreement with your husband or wife, you need to make sure your child's not in earshot of that disagreement because they hear, they know, they absorb. And that's kind of what I meant by
Yeah.
trickle down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I tell you, when you talked about conflict resolution and when you're taught when parents are maybe in a disagreement, one of the things that that just sort of breaks my heart when I look online at Instagram or something and I see parents shouting, screaming at each other, and they're holding a toddler.
Oh
I'm just
Yes.
boy.
thinking,
Yeah.
what are you thinking? This kid is hearing all of this, and they are so angry. They've just forgotten that the child is there. And I tell you, when I see that, Danielle, my heart just breaks because you
Yeah,
just think
absolutely.
about what kind of emotion and what type of the impact that's having on that child. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
So biting is often a problem with toddlers.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
mine did it.
yeah.
So, what strategies can parents apply to get children to stop? And I'm really interested in hearing your answer to this. I based on it, I may or may not share how I got mine to stop.
Well, I had a child who was biting, and I kept getting the phone call, and it was three strikes, you're out. And I had already gotten two phone calls. And I was like, oh my gosh, like she can't get kicked out of preschool because I need her in school. I'm working and, I need her to be there. So I started on my own journey of trying to figure out what would work for my own child, who is now 19, and luckily she doesn't bite anybody anymore.
Mhm.
But the first thing I always tell parents, which I did, was I took her to a dentist and made sure that nothing in her mouth was bothering her, that she wasn't teething or she was
Right,
getting molars or something that was making her be more orally fixated because
right.
she's in some sort of pain. And then I realized that she was just an orally fixated little kid. And so I bought her biting necklaces and biting bracelets.
Oh, wow.
And I said, if you need to put something in your mouth, these are the things to put in your mouth. And I said, you know, um, your mouth is for food, not friends. And I would just keep reiterating that food, not friends. And one day I got a call from the preschool and I said, oh no, she bit somebody again. And the director called and said, I have some bad news. And I thought, I was already opening up the, Rolodex to figure out where can I send her. And she said, your daughter was bitten in school today. And I said, oh, that's the best news you could have ever given me. And they said, what? You're not upset? I said, no. I said, first of all, thank God it wasn't her. And second of all, now she kind of knows what it feels
Yeah,
like, and she's not
yeah,
going to do that again.
yeah,
And sure enough, she didn't. So I think like those are the those are like the things. Really make sure first that their teeth are okay and that they're not in any kind of discomfort or pain, and then provide them with something else to bite on. And then just keep reiterating what their teeth are for, and it's not for your friends.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I won't share.
Danielle, when you gave such an excellent strategy for that, I said to myself, I already know Teresa didn't go that route. So yeah, I didn't expect her to
So
share.
I will
But
tell you,
thank
I
you
will.
so much for what you brought to the table for our audience.
Listen, honestly, I did read in a book that I read a book. I can't remember the guy's name. He was very controversial, right? And the way that he managed to get children recommended to that you get children to stop doing things that they were doing that were not good, right? So I read this book And that was the approach that I took. And if I told you who the guy was, you'll know what approach I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you'll know about just what
Okay.
I did.
I'm sure he probably said, bite your child.
He did. You bite them back. And
Oh,
Yeah.
he bit
Teresa.
me.
Oh my goodness.
I
Even I
know.
would have known not to follow that, Teresa. I mean,
Well,
really.
let me tell you something. I was nursing her and she was biting the
Oh
heck out of
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah,
And
that's rough.
it was rough. And I'm like, don't do that. Right? And then I have a husband who says, don't use the word don't or stop. So I couldn't
Yeah.
say those words. So it was like, okay, I've read in this book, I got something for you.
There you
And I
go.
Okay.
did not bite her hard, but let me tell you, it broke my heart when she looked at me with those eyes like, you did not do that to me. You're supposed
Now,
to love me.
I know, right? You traumatized me.
I
Okay.
did. But guess what?
Audience, forget everything Teresa said. Please follow Danielle's advice on
That's
that.
right. Please
Okay,
do.
please.
But
All
she
right.
never bit me again.
Okay, that's beside the point. You traumatized the child.
I
Okay, here we go. All right, so I'm only directing my questions to our guests, certainly not to you, Teresa. Separation anxiety can be traumatic for children, and that is so true. But it can be so difficult, just as difficult for the parents. Do you have any advice on how to manage that?
Yes. So first, I say if you're going to send your child to preschool, check yourself first. Make sure
Mhm.
you are okay sending them to preschool. And if you're not, think about why. Like, is it just because you don't want to be alone in the house? Is it because you feel
Mhm.
like you're going to be lonely and not have something to do with your time?
Mhm.
Or is it because you're just nervous about the provider? And like really kind of like unpack it all. And the first thing to do really is go visit a lot of schools. And in the book that I wrote, I have a checklist of like 20 questions and go through that checklist and really interview every school and make sure that you're comfortable with how they deal with, behavior issues. Are the
Mhm.
teachers on the floor, playing with the children? Are they warm? Do they hug? You know, do they use a timeout approach? Think me because I don't agree with that. Like I
Mhm.
think we do a positive approach to behavior management, not a negative approach. So I think that helps. Like do your homework first. And then when you decide that it's time to send your child to school, even if you feel trepidation, which I don't know any mom
Yeah, it
that
doesn't, right?
isn't like heartbroken when they have to say goodbye to their child for the first
Mhm.
time. I mean, I
Mhm.
cried in the parking lot,
Mhm.
but don't let your child see you be upset. Let your child feel your joy, your excitement, even if it's pretend excitement.
Mhm.
Let them feel that you're so excited for them and use positive words. At the end of the day, when you pick them up or drop them off, don't say, it's going to be okay. You're going to be all right. Say, it's going to be amazing. You're going to have a great time. When you pick them up, say, how was your day? Was it awesome? What was the best thing you did today? Don't say, oh, was it okay? Because
Yeah.
that's really for you as a parent. You're trying to make yourself feel better, but it really does a disservice to the child. Um, and I realized that when I went to pick up my daughter 30 minutes early, the first day of preschool, because I thought she must be crying in the corner
Mhm.
needing me, and
Mhm.
she was not.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
And I felt bad. Like, what, why isn't she crying for me?
Right.
Like, and and then I thought, you know what? It's great that she's not crying for me. It's
Mhm.
great that she's adjusting so well, that
Right.
she's loving it. And so I think that's the best thing. Like, and if you really are not ready as a parent, don't send them.
Mhm.
Wait.
Right. I love your point, Danielle, about first sort of check in with yourself and see where your emotions are coming from,
Yeah.
because that's a good starting point to figure out what's going on with me, because you certainly don't want to project those fears or concerns onto your child. So that's very helpful. Mhm.
Very, very. So, what is the number one thing parents should ask a prospective preschool when they are interviewing them?
Well, they should always check to make sure they're licensed.
Mm,
Hmm.
Um, and that's can be a little tricky. So it's important to know that in certain states, schools that go from preschool through eighth grade or high school are often not licensed with the same rigor or in the same way as a standalone preschool. So find out what their regulations are and what their standards are, because that's really important. Um, you know, and so I think and also you can go on your state site and see if there's been any citations towards the school, if there's been any complaints towards the school. Find out that first and foremost. And then ask for recommendations from parents, current parents, alumni parents. Every school should be able to throw you a couple names of parents
Hmm.
that love it and can talk to you about it. And then absolutely go and visit and really interview the director, talk with the teachers, make sure like that you walk out of there feeling good.
Hmm.
If you feel off in any way, it's not the right place. Move on.
Hmm. 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 Okay. So, Daniel, you referenced earlier about maybe not being timeout not being the best corrective measure. So, in instance, what would you, for preschool kids, what would be, I guess, like the go-to behavior modification technique, if you
So
will?
we like to have like a comfort corner,
Okay.
a place where, because usually kids are not acting out because they want to be disruptive or they want to be bad. They do because sometimes they just can't sit that long, or maybe they
Mhm.
may have ADHD that hasn't even been addressed yet or
Right.
diagnosed. And so to cut down on a lot of those behavior problems, we say to the children, if you feel that you need to remove yourself for a little bit and go into the quiet corner and, play with some fidget spinners or some crayons or puzzles, do that. Give them that control. Let them do that. And when you feel like you want to come back to the circle, then come on back. The
Mm.
other thing we do is we catch kids being good, not being bad.
Mhm.
So if they're because kids want negative or positive attention, they don't care as long as they get the attention. So if a child, let's say, hits another child, we might say, Bobby, please don't hit. And then we shower the person who was hit with love and oh, you're so brave and you're so good and wonderful. And then we don't give any attention to Bobby. We just don't really address it as much. But when Bobby has 5 seconds of doing what we want him to do, we praise him. We say, "You're amazing, Bobby. Thank you. Look how great you are with your friends. You're following directions. You're the best helper." And we just keep reinforcing the
Mhm.
good stuff.
Right.
And it seems to always work.
Wow.
Kids
Mhm.
like they get such a good feeling about
Mhm.
it, and they get the same kind of attention that they were getting from the negative, and they're happy, and it usually really, even the most difficult student, it turns them around.
I like that. That's very
me too.
helpful. Thank you. Yeah.
Me
Yeah.
too. I
Hmm.
think, I mean, I'm not sure. My child is so far from that age. I mean, I don't know. I know they weren't doing that when she was a child. I mean, a preschooler, but I hope that, this is something that is being used throughout right now. If
Yeah,
it's not, it should be. So folks get this book or this pocket guide.
it's
Yeah.
not used as often as we would like it to be.
Hmm.
And, I know I have the same thing when my child was in school. I found out that at lunchtime, they were making her sit and stare at a wall instead of participate in lunch because she was not following directions. And that
Mm.
did not make her behavior better.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And I thought, that's abusive, How can you
Yeah.
do that to a child? Like,
Yeah.
just give her some praise when she is doing what she's doing. that you want her to do, and she'll keep doing it because
Yeah.
she was just a kid who wanted attention. She wanted love, warmth, she was one of those huggy kids.
Hmm.
And so she sometimes would act out because, there's 22 kids in a class and you can't always be the center of attention, but um, doing those negative things and pulling a kid out. And plus, when they're 2 or 3, they don't really even understand why they're in a corner.
Right.
They
That's
don't,
right.
they don't know why. They don't
Yeah, that's
understand
right.
it.
All right, so we have reached the last of our questions. Do you have any parting words that you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, I think the biggest thing for parents to remember is that they are not alone
Hmm.
and that every problem that they have, there's a million other parents that have also had the same problem. And don't be afraid to get help. People go to a doctor for an earache, they go to a therapist for things. Don't be afraid to go to a parent coach and get a little bit of parent coaching because now are these are the most important years when your child's developing. And if you get a little coaching to learn some strategies and get a toolbox from a coach, it's going to make your life so much easier and it's going to make their life so much easier. And everything's just going to be more pleasant for everyone. So, like, you don't need to suffer. And if you want to get my parent guide, you can start there.
Mhm.
And it's called The Parent's Pocket Guide to Surviving the Preschool Years, One Challenge at a Time. And you can find that on my website, daniellelindner.com. It's Lindner. No one ever spells it right. Or Amazon.
Mhm.
All right, thank you so much for spending some time with us this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
take good care.